Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Adobe Live. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior Design Evangelist here at Adobe. Hope you're all doing well on this Thursday morning, afternoon, or evening. If you are tuning in live here on Behance, let me know in the chat who you are and where you're tuning in from. We've got Patrick and Oliver and Clever and Robert and Cody. Great to see you. If you just tuned in from Jesus's stream, you probably learned a ton of things about the world of Firefly. But if you're brand new to this whole exciting new world, I'm going to be diving just a little bit into the world of Firefly, going over some text to image, generative fill, generative expand, all sorts of good stuff. And then next week, I think same time, same place, I'm going to be going a little bit deeper into Firefly. Hey, Joshua and Luciano and Carol, great to see you. Clever from South Texas. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hop over to my screen and we're going to dive into some of the big news. If you missed yesterday's news, first of all, where have you been? But second of all, Firefly is now out of beta, and you can tell by the no beta tag at the top, firefly.adobe.com. What does that mean exactly? Hey, Marcia, great to see you as well. Patrick from Switzerland. Ooh, exciting. I've never been there. Always want to go. So Firefly out of beta, which means lots of things, but for the most part, it means commercial use. So you can now use your Firefly generations commercially, personally and commercially, which is wonderful. So a lot of things that we've released, a lot of things in the works. Adobe Max is less than a month away, which is really exciting. So we're definitely going to have some news there around Firefly and all sorts of things in our various applications. Jeffrey from Providence, RI, is that Rhode Island? Possibly, hopefully. Hey, Mwenda, great to see you. Yeah, long time no see. I know, I don't stream very often anymore. I make other things and I do things internally and, you know, I'll get back to streaming eventually. All right, Firefly. What is Firefly? Well, that's a big question, right? And we only have half an hour, maybe 25 minutes. So I want to dive into some of the features that Firefly offers. Text to image, generative fill, text effects, generative recolor, and then we have a lot in exploration. We've only launched about 6 months ago, and we're moving fast. I think it's fair to say that AI is going to, affect all of us. It's going to touch every single product that we work on. It's just absolutely wild. But let's start off with text to image, because I think, for me, text to image isn't the end game, but it was very important to kind of get Firefly out the door, train the model, get all the bugs out. For me, generative fill, generative expand, some of the features in Photoshop and Illustrator, that's the really exciting stuff. I'm going to show you some of that in just a moment. So what is text to image? Well, it's basically what you would expect, right? You type in something at the bottom in the text prompt and you'll generate something like this, a fuzzy psychedelic caterpillar sitting on a mushroom. Why not, right? Or close-up of a mystic cat, like a phoenix, red and black digital, or red and black colors digital. Wild stuff, right? This thing eating a banana, because why not? Obviously, there are some more practical uses for this. If you're working on a project and you need a specific texture, you may have seen me do this before. You might want like a marble texture, right? And maybe you want very specific colors, blue and gold accents, and you can just generate. And what's really nice about Firefly, the way we're approaching it, is it's very user-friendly, right? So even after you've typed out the prompt at the bottom, over to the right, you have almost full control over your output, right? So you can immediately control the aspect ratio. So if you're working on something that's widescreen, maybe you want a background for a presentation, you can just switch it over to widescreen. If you want to control the content type, none, photo, graphic, or art, I think this one, depending on the style, art could potentially work, but you might want a more photorealistic look to it. And then you have some more styles down at the bottom. But let's go ahead and regenerate this in a widescreen format that's more catered to a photo. And in just a moment, and Firefly works pretty fast, which is wonderful, you're going to see, look at that. That's just beautiful, right? So again, if you are looking for something very specific, if maybe you can't find it on Adobe stock, then Firefly is a great place to generate some of these things, right? Let's go over another example. Maybe we might want to generate a landscape. Maybe we have a very specific landscape or a very specific environment in mind. So, and this can kind of show you how you can build upon your prompt. So if we just type out landscape, let's see if it even lets me. It might be too short. Yeah, it's saying it's too short, but I think it's going to go ahead. But it's kind of telling you that longer prompts sometimes will get you exactly what you're looking for. And you're going to see that we get a decent landscape, right? And I should probably note that these AI models are always getting better, right? And as time goes on, we're going to release new models. It's going to be better at certain things, maybe hands, right? So, we typed out landscape. It's giving us, a decent landscape, but we might want something a little bit more specific. So we might want a beautiful landscape, which could certainly help push it in that direction. Maybe we want lush green hills. And we're going to get something slightly different, maybe with a little bit more green. Let's see what happens. And this is the fun thing about AI is you never really know what you're going to get. And maybe we want a landscape photo instead, but also maybe we want this landscape to be a sunset. And we can press generate and it's going to go. Now down below, we do have the option to control color and tone and lighting as well, but sometimes adding those things directly into the prompt can really push it exactly where you're looking for. So if you wanted maybe golden hour, for example, right? And color and tone maybe a little bit more warm, it's going to add those tags to the bottom. So all of it is very visual, which is wonderful. And we're going to generate one more time and we're going to see what we get. And look at that. So we've got some landscapes that are looking pretty good. And I can now download this. And what's wonderful now is we don't have the watermark. Now, if you're on the free plan for Firefly, you will have a small watermark. But I can go ahead and just share this. I can edit it if I want to, or I can just download it and, get going. So I can download, it's going to apply content credentials so that, others know that AI was used as part of this process, which is wonderful. And then if I go ahead and open this image, bloop, there we go. Look at that. No watermark, which is great. I can use it directly in my projects. Now, we can also use something like generative fill to expand on this even more. So under the edit option, we have the option for generative fill, show similar, which will generate 3 additional results that are more similar to this particular landscape, right? And we can use as a reference image. But let's go ahead and dive into generative fill. And what this will allow you to do, and you're going to see more of this in Photoshop in a few moments, it'll allow you to either remove objects using Firefly or add objects. So maybe I want a hot air balloon, for example, right? So I can just use my brush, and I'll just draw something that kind of looks like a hot air balloon. It doesn't have to look perfect, right? And then down at the bottom, very similar to text to image, I'm going to type out hot, not a hat. I mean, it could be interesting, right? But a hot air balloon. And I'm going to press generate. And it's going to give me 3 different results. And Reverb Mike is asking, couldn't we just start in Photoshop? Absolutely. You can certainly start in Photoshop if you have Photoshop. A lot of people don't have or know how to use Photoshop. Now these are very dark hot air balloons, so it might be not exactly what we want, right? So I can cancel that and colorful. Let's just add some colors. So yeah, firefly.adobe.com is a great resource. And you can also do this in Express as well for those who maybe don't have Photoshop or don't want to even bother opening Photoshop, right? So this one's not too bad. It's got a little bit of a weird notch at the bottom. I don't know if that's a normal thing for hot air balloons, but you get the idea, right? And maybe down below, right down here, I can go ahead and keep that. And maybe we might want a group of sheep. Group of sheep. And I'm going to press generate one more time. So you can start in text to image, generate something that looks really cool, bring it over to generative fill, and you've got now some hot air balloons and some sheep. And I can go ahead and keep that as well. And then I can download the image directly onto my computer. Again, with content credentials and no watermark, right? All right, let's go back before we dive into Photoshop. And generative fill, I just showed you, we've got some text effects, which are fun. I'm not going to dive too deep in text effects. I personally haven't used text effects very much because I like, they're fun, but they're just not my thing, right? But I know a lot of people, especially in Adobe Express, who want something very specific. And this one is a fluffy quilt, right? So if you want something that looks like a quilt or balloons or popcorn or something to that effect, if you've got some fun text effects that you can certainly use. And very similar to text to image, you've got more stylization options over to the right. So you can make your fluffy quilt a little bit tighter or looser around the text. So I can generate one more time, and you can change the font, background color. You can have transparent, so you can download it and apply it to other images as well. But it's, it's fun if you have a very specific use case for text effects like that, right? Generative recolor is cool, and we just released this in Illustrator as well. That is also out of beta. So if you're working with SVGs or Adobe Illustrator files in Illustrator, you'll be able to recolor your design. So, imagine you've spent, hours designing something really cool, and then you want to see what it looks like in different themes, right? So you spent hours creating this wonderful piece of artwork, and instead of going through and changing the colors of every single object manually, all you can do now is you can dive in and you can choose a theme, let's say trippy disco light, and generate, and it's going to show you a few different options based on that theme. And of course you can enter something down here at the bottom as well. Let's say retro, orange, and green. I don't know if that's going to even look very nice, but you can certainly do that. And what's amazing is that it applies it to your vector graphics. So you can continue editing all the vector work just like that, right? So I can, if I like this one, I can download it, share it, whatever I might want to do, which is great. All right. So let's go back. Again, we do have a bunch of things in exploration, sketch to image, 3D to image, all sorts of different things. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that all of these things are going to be released, but certainly things that we're exploring based on feedback. So definitely keep us, up to date with what feedback you have and what you'd like to see in Firefly in the future. All right. So you may have remembered in just a few moments ago, we generated the beautiful landscape with the hills, and we added a hot air balloon, and we added some sheep. I'm gonna go ahead now, bring this into Photoshop. Because again, for me, this is kind of where the bread and butter is. It's being, it's integrating Firefly into Photoshop and Illustrator, and who knows what else in the future. We've showed off a few explorations for video-based Firefly tools, which you never know. Those might come in the future as well. So I opened this up in Photoshop, and actually very quickly, before I dive deeper into this generative fill, generative expand, I do want to play a quick video. It's about a minute long on some of these tools. So I'll be back in just a minute.
Show you everything. I think you're gonna like it here. A little bit different atmosphere, like a brand new frontier. I think you're gonna like it here. Hey, it's nice to meet you. Hey, so good to see you. Like it here.
So that was a quick video that I created for the Firefly launch yesterday. Had a lot of fun creating that, but I wanted to kind of show you what was possible in Photoshop for generative fill and generative expand. I'm not going to be diving too deep into those today, but I do want to show you a few things while we have about 10 minutes left. And in particular, we've got this image that we generated on Firefly, right? Firefly.adobe.com. And the first thing you might want to do is might want to expand the image. And we made it a lot easier recently. Before you had to expand your image, you had to grab the crop tool, expand it, and then you had to use generative fill, right? But now we can all do it very quickly. So if I grab my crop tool and I'm going to expand this, let's say expand it this way, right? And previously we had our content aware fill, which works pretty well. I'm gonna go ahead and accept that just to see what this gives us. And it's not bad, right? But it does kind of clone the sheep over here, right? It's almost identical, which is not what we want. And the nice thing about generative expand and generative fill is it avoids those cloning situations because it doesn't just like copy and paste over to different areas. So if I extend this one more time, this time we're gonna want generative expand. And you can also do that on your contextual taskbar down at the bottom. I'm gonna press generate. It's gonna go through that process of understanding the image, understanding the colors and the lighting and all sorts of different things. And it's gonna give us 3 different options for this expanded image, which looks incredible, right? I don't know which one. I think this one over here looks pretty nice. And I can also expand it in the other direction as well. So let's say, for example, you wanted more of a square look, so I can change the ratio to square. Now, of course, I could crop the image in, but we're losing a lot of information, right? Oh. Well, that's awkward. Awkward, right? Let me go back and we'll do this again without my face on the screen. All right, thank you. This is why I rely on chat to yell at me when something's not going right. All right, so we've got this image, right? Many of you heard what I was doing, but you didn't see it, right? Anyways, we're gonna grab the crop tool and I'm gonna skip ahead, right? So you might want a specific aspect ratio. And I'm going to set it to 1:1 at the top. And I'll expand it, right? Instead of cropping, which is gonna lose a lot of information. Everyone in the chat is laughing. Awkward. Now I can go ahead and press generate. And it's going to understand the image like you did not see before. But now you're gonna see all of that goodness. And I have the monitor right over here to the side, so I should have been able to see that. But anyways, a few different options, and this one looks pretty fancy, right? And it's even added the rest of the sun, which is kind of wild. Cool stuff, right? So we can expand it maybe more, and maybe I can reset go in this direction, generate one more time. So even after you've generated your images on the Firefly website or directly in Photoshop, as someone was mentioning earlier, you can then expand on those images using generative expand, which is really cool. Look at that. And I will note, because someone's going to ask about the resolution, as of yesterday's launch, the resolution is the same. However, we are very actively working on expanding support for higher resolution generations. I don't have any information on when that might come, but definitely something that we want to offer in the future. So look at that. We went from this to this. And honestly, it just looks seamless, which is amazing. If you were to try to do that previously, it would be a big hassle, but now you can do it really easily. And then we have a lot of different examples, like swapping out the background of your photo. I'm going to give you a few different examples. And then again, next week when I'm here for, I think we're calling it like Firefly 202 or something, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into some of this stuff. But we might want a new background on this particular photo. So I'm going to start by selecting the subject down at the bottom on the contextual taskbar. And then we can invert the selection using this button down here, or you can go up to the select menu and then down to inverse. It's inverse here and invert down at the bottom. I don't know. And then generative fill. Now, if you just wanted to generate something random or remove that background, you can certainly just keep it blank. But if you wanted, let's say, a coffee shop, let's see what that looks like, right? And what's really cool is it's going to match, or do its best to match, the background, that blur back there, because it's also going to notice that around her body, right, and her hair, it's a little bit blurred. So the depth of field certainly isn't very sharp. So it's going to do its best to match that blur in the background, which is really cool. Someone's asking, I saw something about the resolution. I saw it. Maybe it's deleted. But what the current limitations are. I believe in Photoshop it's like 1024 by 1024. So if you need something nice and crispy and you're working on a very large document, I would definitely generate in chunks, right? But yeah, current resolution I think is around 1024. On the web, Firefly might be around 2000, something like that. But yeah, definitely improving that in the future. Let's do one more. This kind of combines the removing background plus extending image. So I would probably say to swap the background first. You can do it either way, right? So I'm going to go ahead and select the subject. Let's invert the selection, and let's do the coffee shop again, because that was fun. It's going to generate a brand new background, again trying its best to match the blur of the current background. Marsha's saying, I find the creation of the perspective amazing. Yeah, it's pretty cool how it's able to determine those sorts of things. That one looks pretty decent. And now I can go ahead and grab the crop tool and extend this out. Maybe I'll extend it out this way as well a little bit. And we're going to generate. So now it's going to combine the original image, the replaced background, and it's going to extend it. And look at that. It's even added part of his jacket. That's wild. That one even added some seams, which is really cool, right? I don't know how it does this stuff, but it's absolutely crazy. This one, I think I uploaded in one of the videos. I'm going to skip this one for now because we only have a few minutes left, but I do want to dive into this example here, where it kind of shows you how you can generate additional elements for your photo compositions. And actually, Jesus kind of covered some of this stuff. So you might want, we have this kind of hole in this library of books, right? And we might want to replace the background. So what I can do is I could, manually go through and select this area here, or we can use something like the object selection tool. And I'm going to just drag this. And fun little pro tip, I can hold down my space bar to drag the selection around before I accept it. So I want to make sure to get as much as possible back there. And, all right, that's not too bad. Looks like it probably thought some of this was part of the books maybe, so it did not select it. So then I can dive in and use my quick selection tool to add to that selection. Something like this. I'm gonna go around and make sure that we have, I think that's part of a book down there. Maybe add a little bit here. No, that looks okay. All right, so now that I have that selected, let me actually, whoops. Well, look at that. It even did not select that little string, right? That was on that book. That's kind of wild. Anyways, so I can go ahead and use generative fill. Now, sometimes it might make sense to either expand or contract the selection to add a little bit more of the books, depending on what you have selected, either expand or contract. But let's go ahead and see what it looks like. And let's say a beautiful landscape. We'll do something very similar to what we generated on the Firefly website. Let's see what happens. Now this one may not match the blur, but let's see. Yeah, this one did not, because if I hide this, the blur on the books is very minimal. So it may not really detect that there's much blur back there because we just selected the background and it's trying to match the surrounding area, which are those books, right? So we have a few different, I don't know if I would consider that a beautiful landscape, but what's kind of nice is, within the properties, you can go ahead and rate good, poor, or you can report it if it, violates some terms or something. But this one's not too bad. And then on top of that, you can continue doing what we did previously, right? So if you wanted, let's say, a hot air balloon right in the center, I'm just holding down space to move this around, and hot air balloon. So a lot of this, we did on the Firefly website, but now you can also do much of it in Photoshop as well. That's not a great looking hot air balloon. That one's looking a little bit better. This one I'm probably going to rate as poor, just so you can see this experience, and you can, go through this whole process to, and this helps, train the model and that sort of thing. So I would, use this result in my project. Probably not, so I'm gonna disagree with that. The result matched my text prompt. It did match it is a hot air balloon, right? So I'm gonna agree with that. The result looked believable. Probably not in this case. And I would definitely recommend that you go through this process if you do receive results that just don't work properly, right? The result blends well with the rest of the image. Now this one does not, because it has this weird halo around it. So I'm gonna say it disagree. and I can add some notes if I want to, and I submit the feedback. And this, again, will help train our future models. Now this one looks pretty good. And then because I'm in Photoshop, I can obviously go through and continue to improve on this result, maybe dodge, burn, use some neural filters and that sort of thing. But you can kind of see how very quickly you can take an image like this. Let me move this out of the way and change the background, add some hot air balloons, all sorts of different things, just with generative fill. And then you can continue to expand on it using your creativity. You can extend the image if you wanted to, right? You can add some more books. Hopefully, we'll see what happens before we wrap things up. The enhance tool in Camera Raw can be handy to increase the resolution. Yeah, so there's a lot of different things. If the resolution isn't as high as you would want it, you can certainly bring into Camera Raw, or you can just, open up your image size and you can increase the image that way. Let's say to 2000. We do have some resampling options, and which have certainly gotten better over the years. And I can go ahead and do that. And for the most part, it looks pretty good, right? So you can do those things as well. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for me for today. Next week, same time, same place, I'm going to be back diving a little bit deeper into the world of Adobe Firefly. Stick around, we've got more content coming right up, and I will see you all next time.